Hey there, PDX Real Estate Podcast listeners. Before we get into today's show, I've got a real quick announcement for you, and that is that my company, TTM, is still looking to buy fixers and teardowns all over the Portland metro area, even in this post-corona economy that we have going on right now. So if you have anything that comes across your desk that may not fit the retail market, we'd love to hear from you. All you got to do is go to our website, which is ttmdevelopmentcompany.com. There's a Contact Us tab. Fill out the information, submit it to us, and we'll give you a call. Or if you'd like to, just call us at the office, 503-224-6200, and we'd love to chat with you about the property. Now, let's get into the show. This is the Portland Real Estate Podcast, your number one place for anything you need to know about the Portland real estate market, along with in-depth interviews from our local real estate industry experts. Now, without further ado, here are our hosts, Tucker Merrihew from TTM Development Company and Steve Nassar from Premier Property Group. All right, everybody, welcome back. This is the Portland Real Estate Podcast. We got through our technical difficulties, and we're streaming live here in Masters. I feel like I haven't seen my co-hosts here in a while. We've had some major life events and some time go by. So what's going on, fellas?
Hey, welcome back. Good to see you all. We only took a week off.
True, but you had a big thing happen in that week, so you know.
I did. I had a backyard wedding. You know, in the old days, that sounded like a really ghetto thing to do. Remember that? Like if a year ago, if somebody said, "Yeah, I'm getting married in my backyard," you'd be like, "Okay, that sounds like a budget. You're on a budget." But it's kind of the world we live in. So,
Corona weddings.
Yeah.
So we've had some data come out on the market, which obviously we want to talk about. But before we dive into that, we should probably rope our guest in to chat about that. So, Steve, why don't you give our guest who was nice enough to come on the show a nice intro, and we can go from there.
Absolutely. Yeah. So a week ago today, instead of a podcast, which we normally do on Fridays, I was on a panel for YPN, which is a PMAR entity, right, Mel? It's part of PMAR.
It's a realtor organization, Young Professionals Network.
But it's affiliated with PMAR, isn't it? Or is it completely?
So basically there's a Young Professionals Network national, kind of like we have NAR and OAR, and so we have our little subset here. But yes,
okay.
It's members of PMAR.
Yeah. Okay. And actually, the event that we did last week was a virtual event. It was Zoom, and there was a great audience on it. It was supposed to be 2 months ago. In fact, the day it was canceled, it was going to be a Thursday at Buffalo Gap in person, and it was canceled, I think, the day before, which was like March 12th, or the event was going to be March 12th. So it was canceled like the 11th when really everything was hitting the fan and the world was getting crazy real fast. So they canceled the live event. They had it last week virtually. Mel George with Windermere, right?
That's correct.
Out of the Lloyd office, I believe. So she's a downtown office agent. Was on the panel with me. I was very impressed by Mel. She did a 15-minute presentation, as did I. And it was just such an upbeat, positive message. She's a great agent. She's been around for 14 years, I believe, in the business. She talked a little bit about the last downturn. She talked about things she's implementing in her business today and lessons she'd learned. She talked a lot about mental mindset, and I just loved everything she had to say. She used a great analogy. I'm going to steal it from you and share it and give you credit. And it's one that I've heard before, and I just resonates so well with me. One of the things she said that just was awesome was she said, look, if you're looking at your business, without that positive mindset, it's kind of like a golf shot. If you're about to hit the ball and you're trying to go over water and all you're thinking about is don't go in the water, don't go in the water, don't go in the water, guess where you always go, right? And so she applied that to our business and staying positive and thinking about success and focusing on success. So welcome, Mel. We're thrilled to have you on. We're live streaming this in Masters. If you have questions, comments, thoughts, Joe and I are going to be doing everything we can to give you credit and share your thoughts live here with everybody else. So
Thank you. It's great to be here.
Mel, let's just go right into it. Tell us your background and prior to real estate, and you're young enough. Maybe it's the only thing you've ever done, and then what got you into the business.
Well, prior to real estate, I was working as a corporate event planner for Hollywood Entertainment. I think y'all probably remember Hollywood Video and Game Crazy.
Yeah.
And so, I was there for a little bit. And prior to that, I was working at an architecture firm. And before that, Wells Fargo Financial. I just never stayed at any given job more than 3 years. Once that challenge would wear off and I would just get bored. So I'd been volunteering at that time a lot with Habitat for Humanity, and I wanted the ability to make my own schedule so I could volunteer whenever I wanted, just except for, not just on Saturdays. And my husband, who was my boyfriend at the time, had just bought his first house, and his realtor was telling me about the business. And since I had a background in lending, architecture, construction, and event planning, real estate just sounded like a great fit for me. So, I bought my study materials that night.
Awesome.
What year was that?
That was I started studying in 2006.
Okay.
Got my license that year.
Awesome. Same company? Have you moved much, or have you been in the same place?
I started with Oregon Realty. I was there about 6 years, and then went to Realty Trust for about 6 years. And then 2 years ago, we merged with Windermere Stellar. So now we're Windermere Realty Trust.
Awesome. Yeah. By the way, since you said it, I want to say it while I'm thinking about it. Habitat for Humanity, in your email that you sent us, I think you said you've volunteered thousands of hours. Is that correct for them? With Habitat?
I would say more hundreds.
Hundreds. Okay.
Yeah.
I have to tell you. So we here at Premier Property Group, we do have what we call the Circle of Giving. We do quarterly things, and we, in addition to money, we also volunteer time. And we've done several events where we volunteered time. I did it with the Oregon Food Bank. I did it with another few. We did it with Habitat for Humanity. Oh my gosh. I'm just going to tell you, it is no picnic. Like, you literally show up, they put tool belts on you, and they go, here's a saw, here's a drill, get over there. And in the blazing sun, we were doing labor like anybody that would be building a house. There was no, hey, here, do this little minor thing, or, move these boards. I mean, it was real work, and it was hard work, and it was very fulfilling, but it was pretty awesome. And it's no picnic. So when somebody says they've done hundreds of hours with him, they've done some serious hardcore labor. So, so you started before the Great Recession. Tell us about that time period and how it affected you, how it's affected you now. Or how it affected you then. Let's talk about that.
Yeah. So I started right, as the market was on its, very beginnings of its decline. And, a lot of the realtors that I knew, they were so forthcoming with the fact that money was so easy, and they had all these, second houses and all these, boats and extra cars and all this, all these toys. And, when I got in, of course, you do think that it's lucrative. So you get in, and it was a tough market, but it was also tough because I was new. I didn't grow up here. I had a really small network, and I didn't have the skills or the tools to grow my network or to keep in touch regularly. I didn't have marketing dollars to, farm or send mailers out to my sphere. I was barely scraping by. And, my peers at the time weren't quite buying houses yet. And I'm a pretty shy person, so I was too shy to really sell myself to my small network. I was learning forms and processes, but didn't realize the importance of being in a constant flow with my contacts. So, I remember taking one of those DISC personality assessments and thought I would never really be a closer. So I struggled a lot, and about year 3, my business started picking up, and I started feeling more confident, but I never knew when my next paycheck would come. And, thankfully I had grown up in a pretty frugal household. So I took those lessons with me. I learned how to run a tight ship, and, you know, I really upped my knowledge and my skill set, and I started doing side work for another broker. That broker ended up being my mentor and really close friend. And, you know, I'm forever grateful for her taking me under her wing. And now I know the importance of working on my business, you know, with lead generation and all that, versus just working in my business with transactional stuff. So, you know, I'm really thankful that I started when I did, because it taught me how to be smart with my money, and I learned how to save.
And I've heard this said before, Mel, and I'd love your input, because you're the case study of this. Because I've met other people who started during that Great Recession, and they later on, I mean, obviously the ones that started and didn't do well, I haven't really spoken with them, but the ones who made it, such as yourself, they kind of they gave credit to the fact that they started when it was so tough, they didn't know otherwise, and hence they just built skills and systems during a really tough time that then when things got better, they only built on and grew from. Yeah. I guess part of why I bring this up is there are certainly going to be people right now who maybe started in the last year or even more recent than that. Maybe, and maybe they can appreciate what that means to be starting at such a tough time.
Absolutely.
What would you say about that?
Yeah, there are definite lessons to be learned from this experience that we're having now, you know, whether it's, you know, learning different technology, whether it's learning how to put yourself out there in different ways, or having a different, you know, skill set for marketing, or, you know, just all of those things. I think that we're learning, you know, a lot about people's fears, and the fact, you know, that people really just need to feel listened to and understood. And I think that this feels different because we really are all in this together. You know, when you have somebody you're talking to across, you know, around the world, around the globe, you know, a client who's in a different state, we're all dealing with it. And so there's a different sense of camaraderie. And I think that it will really help these, you know, newer agents understand that people are just, you know, we're human, and just help, you know, figure out when you're moving forward how to really truly, you know, understand what your clients' needs are and how you can really help people.
Let's talk a little bit more about today. What did you learn through the last recession that has helped you today? And what are you implementing today in that regards?
Yeah, well, I mean, I know, Steve, you're all about systems and, you know, having different processes, and I am too. So I've really taken a lot of time to get super organized and systematic, and learn how to be efficient with how I run my business, you know, studying a lot, reading a lot, learning different sales techniques, and, you know, just sort of managing the day-to-day in a positive way.
Talk to us about some of the positivity mindset that you talked about at the YPN. I mean, that's a big thing. I mean, Joe's talked about, he's even hinted at even having a separate podcast, or, you know, a separate event that's just about positivity. So while that hasn't been created yet, bring it here.
Yeah,
sure.
It's actually, we're getting the logo and the animation for the intro and outro together, but we got a couple in the can already. We just, once everything gets here, it'll be on the front and back of it, and they're going to be short. Just, there's so much good happening right now in our market and in our industry that it needs to be shared. I mean, look, if you want to read some negative stuff, Facebook is full of it. You know, you could go there and get your fill, and you don't even have to scroll that far. Positive Real Estate Perspectives, the podcast, is only going to share the great stuff. And it's not, you know, we don't have rainbows coming out of our ass. It's going to be realistic, positive stuff. We're just not going to bring in the negative stuff, right? So exactly. I think it's great. And, you know, your analogy, Steve, about the hit it in the water, the old saying is, whether you believe you can do something or whether you believe you cannot do something, you will always be right. So I'm really happy that Mel's here to talk about mindset because an old psychology major, this is like my wheelhouse. I love it. So I'd like
That's
to
what
hear
happens
more.
with psychology majors, huh? They turn into realtors. I always wondered. Yeah.
That's right. I was going for business, but then they said you had to pass calculus. So I switched to psychology. So business and psychology, it's like realtor.
True.
Very true.
Right. Right. So, the goal is to really, there are three keys to success, right? You have mindset, skill set, and action. And mindset is really where it all starts. And, you want to try to maintain a positive mindset. I'm not sure if I'm going to do slides here since this is turning into a podcast, but I'm going to describe a box with 4 smaller boxes in it, right? You've got a table there, 4 small boxes. You've got your positive sides and your negative sides. High positive, low positive, high negative, low negative. High positive is like, hell yeah, the world's amazing, I'm on fire. Low positive is just being content and being mellow. High negative is when you're angry. Low negative is when you're depressed. And so the key to maintaining a positive mindset is to really control that emotional energy. You don't always want to stay in the high positive mindset because it's just not reality. You want to try to vacillate between high positive and low positive. So the way that we do that, the way that we control our emotional energy is to really practice. If you think about the fact that it's not very enjoyable to be around angry or depressed people, how we gravitate toward positive, happy people, and not having the bandwidth, especially now, to deal with negativity, neither do our clients or our friends. So taking that time to actually practice, it's got to be a daily regimen or at least a weekday regimen. It's just like working out, right? You have to work your muscles, you have to work your body, but your mind is the same way. So the way that we can sort of maintain this positive mindset are, it's a daily thing. So I've learned these techniques from this amazing book called Ninja Selling. Highly recommended. It was written by Larry Kendall, and I had gone
What
through.
was it called again? We couldn't see it. What was it called?
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, it's okay.
Ninja Selling.
Ninja Selling. I've heard of that. Okay.
Ninja Selling. Yes, it's by Larry Kendall.
Got it.
Really excellent read. But, I read the book, but then I had gone through this actual week-long intensive training a few years ago, and it was really the best thing that I could have ever done for my career. So in learning that, you've got these regimented things that you're going to want to do on a consistent basis. So we know that our best brain activity is in the morning. So I'm getting up an hour earlier than anyone in my household, and I'm doing it before I look at my phone. I've got a different alarm clock. I'm not using my phone as my alarm clock. We know that when we use our phones as our alarm clocks, we turn off our alarm, look at our social media, look at our email, and we're just bombarded with information that we have no control over. And it puts us into a mindset that we don't even have the ability to really set. So you're going to start with your 20 to 30 minutes of exercise. Just a basic walk or jog or workout video or yoga video or good old school calisthenics, whatever floats your boat. We know what endorphins do for us. And right now, during this super hard time, it's important to really start the day that way. The next thing we're going to do are, gratitudes, things that you're grateful for. There has been a ton of research on this. Grateful people report higher levels of positive emotions, life satisfaction, vitality, optimism, and lower levels of depression and stress. So you're going to write down 3 things that you're grateful for, and then 3 things that would make the day great. There's a really wonderful 5-minute journal that takes a couple minutes in the morning and a couple minutes at night. I really like this because it sets the tone for the day, and then it also is the last thing I do at night before I turn out my light, and it keeps me in that positive mindset and helps me actually sleep better. So you're going to start with your gratitudes. The next thing you're going to do is you're going to do a positive reading, something short, like a short chapter from The Go-Giver or Dear Stranger by Richard Branson or the Ninja Prayer or something like Mastery by Stuart Emery. something really feel good. And then you're going to do your positive affirmations. And this is one of my favorite things about this whole routine. And it makes a lot of sense because, you know, with your analogy with golfing and the ball going into the water.
It was your analogy, by the way.
Right. Well, you know, today it's yours. No worries on that. So we have this mind over matter. And how does that really work? Well, it's a section of nerves in your brainstem called your reticular activating system. And that part of your brain works as a filter. So if you think about, you know, the last time you got a new car or you wanted to get a new car and you start seeing them around town, you know, your brain is acting as a filter. And so that's the good news, but it's also the bad news. It lets anything in that's of value, but also that's a threat. So, you know, knowing that our subconscious makes up about 73% of our actual brain matter means that what we focus on expands. And, you know, our brains can't distinguish between reality and what is vividly imagined. So focus on what you want to change. You know, I'll share a couple of mine with you that I've written down, and, you know, I kind of look at these every day and really focus on them, and they're not just all about work. One is my buyers and sellers are very loyal to me. I make a special effort to do something nice at least once each day for my significant other. And I remain calm and poised in all financial situations, as money is always in abundance in my life. So thinking of those things, right? I keep a copy near my desk, and I probably should in my car or at my mirror, somewhere where I'm going to see them 2 to 3 times a day and just either say them out loud or focus on them. And then you're going to have one main one, right, that you write out 25 times a day for the next 30 to 60 days. It should only take about 7 minutes. And I know it seems silly, but think of it like if you were trying to get stronger, you wouldn't just do a push-up once in a while. You would be doing multiple push-ups, multiple reps, many, many different times frequently. So you have to work your mind too. And you could be something like, I enjoy earning X amount of dollars per year, or closing X amount of transactions per year, or something with your health or your partner. So, you know, what is it that you want to change, and write it out with a desired, you know, with that desired vividness and emotion. And then you're going to do your handwritten notes. We all know the power of handwritten notes. So 2 a day takes just a short, you know, couple minutes. Use Facebook to find birthdays or anniversaries or whatever it is. And, you know, the actual act of writing them puts us into that positive mindset. And then the people receiving them are put in that positive mindset too. So number 5, your business tracker. Some people like a whiteboard. I prefer a spreadsheet so I can look at it for 5 minutes a day and then put it away. You know, you've got your closed deals, what's in escrow, your hot list, your warm list. And the people on your warm list might not transact for another couple of years, but by putting them on there, you're continually thinking of opportunities and checking in with them just casually, and thinking with the law of abundance, you know, meaning that there's business everywhere. Your current clients may not sell or buy for a few years, but they're the best source of your referrals. Your next transaction is embedded in your current transaction. And there are about 15 transactions every year for every 100 households who know you. So if you don't have anything in escrow now, or you don't have much in the pipeline, don't worry. Don't focus on that. You know, don't think with the law of scarcity. And I know it's easy to worry about where your next paycheck will come from, but don't think of it that way. And don't compare yourself to other brokers. There's business all around, and it will come. People are still going to have to buy and sell or invest or divest, you know, every day. So practice, put yourself out there consistently, and remember, you know, the law of abundance. There's business everywhere. So that should all just take about an hour. And then you're going to do your, you know, 50 live conversations a week. And, you know, again, why do we want to do that? Well, we want to have those referrals, of course. We know people do business with those that they know, like, and trust, but that they're also in flow with. So that frequency of interaction really matters. And I know right now it might be hard to do if you're struggling yourself, but just, it's a perfect time to reach out. You know, just check with a neighbor if they need groceries, or, you know, somebody needs a virtual happy hour or something like that. Because even if you're struggling now, know that there are people in much worse positions, if it's whether it be emotionally or financially or physically. So just, reach out, just check in. Don't be salesy. People hate that. Just be a friend. And the old adage that it's really better to give than receive is so true. So building those relationships will keep you in that positive mindset and focusing on that growth. So
Mel, did you see the podcast we had with Eric Post? It was like 2 weeks ago.
I did.
Yeah. So he talked about coming from a place of abundance and
Yep.
not scarcity. So I completely understand that. With all of those affirmations and things that you do, I would take it even a step further, and that would be sending out like a dozen little text messages that just say, "You're awesome." Because it's always great to not only have it for yourself, but just remind the people around you that they're awesome or you appreciate them. When my kids were little, in parenting them, we read all these books, and what they said was, catch your kid doing something good, right? It's not just like, hey, don't eat the cookie, and hey, put your, you made a mess. You got to catch them doing something good once in a while and say, hey, that's awesome. So I appreciate the affirmations. We got something from Richard. Oh, we got something from Eric Post also, who talks about Ford. Do you guys know the acronym FORD?
No. I saw his post and I didn't know what Ford meant. Tell us.
It doesn't mean fix or repair daily, which is
Or found on Road Dead.
yeah,
thought he
found
might
on
be.
Road Dead.
Yes, I remember that one.
Mel, do you want to explain that
Sure,
to the?
yeah. So, if you're just having a conversation with someone that you maybe don't know very well, maybe it's at your niece's soccer game or something like that, you're going to think of this FORD acronym, and it helps you come up with conversational pieces. So it stands for family, occupation, recreation, and dreams. So once you kind of go through that list, you can find a commonality with really anyone, and giving them the opportunity to talk about themselves makes them feel good.
Mel, I have a question for you.
Yeah.
Because there's probably somebody watching us right now who's like, oh my gosh, there are rainbows coming out of her butt. Like, it is all positive. It is all positive. This girl is detached from reality. All she thinks about is, my day's going to be good. My day's going to be good. My day is going to be good. And then reality is going to slam her in the face with something. And how do you, so my question is, by the way, I'm not the person that's saying that. How do you address those people? Like, what do you do to balance reality with all these positive things you're doing?
Well, I mean, it's a great question, because there are a lot of crappy days, right? But if you're truly, truly practicing being in a mellow, content mindset, and it could be even just like, hey man, my day didn't suck because I ate something good for lunch. There's one little thing that you can take from your day and you can put it in there. And so, yeah, it's not all sunshine and rainbows, but if you can just sort of give yourself a timeout and say, hey, why am I so pissed off? Or why am I being, so grouchy with my kid? Or why am I being so frustrated with my spouse? I mean, just give yourself a timeout. Go outside for 5 minutes, go on a power walk for 10 minutes, or just, turn on music that you like, or, make your favorite coffee or something like that. Just step away from what you're doing and really look at the big picture and understand that, like, yeah, it sucks, but there's somebody else who's suffering way more than I am. And so I have to just like suck it up, because with 1 in 4 Americans who are not working right now, we are so fortunate that, like, I just don't feel like we really have a right to bitch about something, when maybe it's not that big of a deal. And if it is a big deal, you can work through it, but you really have to practice it.
Okay, so awesome. Do you allow yourself to briefly visit the negative, think it through, understand what you could have learned, and then move away from it? That's kind of
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. I mean, I think a toddler, I have a 4-year-old, And so it's
Yeah.
that constant struggle, right? Where he'll do something and I'm just like, oh my God, I want to shake you. Or not that I ever would, of course, but just like, why am I so mad about that? Like, he's 4, let it go. Or, a co-op agent that I'm working with, maybe they don't really understand what I'm trying to say or understand my client's position. Like, you get there, but you have to get out of it pretty quickly, because if you dwell on it, that doesn't serve anybody. And especially
Absolutely.
doesn't serve yourself.
I'll give our listeners an analogy that a lot of them can relate to. Our work. If we have a listing opportunity, we go to the listing appointment, they're meeting with several agents. We put our best foot forward. We're doing the whole staying positive stuff. And the next day we get the email or the call or something saying, hey, thanks for meeting with me, Steve. I'm going to go ahead and go with someone else.
Yeah.
There's a negative, right? It's right there. Now, we could do the whole positive thing and you just not think about it and go, I'm just going to move on. But that isn't productive in that you don't learn something. So what I've done in the past and what I try to do is I allow myself to go there with my mind. Okay, what could I have done better? What is there one thing that in hindsight, I wish I had said, wish I had done, wish had, could have been better. And then I scan that experience and then I put it out of my mind and I move on. And I don't let my mind keep going back to that place. A week later, I'm not, trolling the listing going, oh, so-and-so got it, they're live. And every 3 days I'm checking the listing. Oh my gosh, now it's pending. I knew that one was going to sell fast. There's that's 12 grand I could have had next month. Dang it. And then you watch it get that's hanging out in the negative. You're just constantly there. So you have to do the negative scan of what could I have done better so that you take something forward with you to the next opportunity. And by the way, guys, sometimes there's nothing you could have done better. That's okay to realize too. Sometimes I go, man, I thought I nailed it. I said everything right. We were hitting it off. We made small talk. Sometimes it is like that. And that's okay to understand and appreciate. But so it is okay to go to the negative, but it needs to be short. It needs to be brief. It needs to be purposeful. It needs to be so what you ask yourself, what could I have learned and what can I do different in the future? And then you go back to the positive. That's what I hope those people who say that about people like yourself realize is we aren't always in the positive. We're just there a lot more.
Yeah. And, to add on to that, I don't think that it's out of line to, if you had a great conversation with that seller, you could just say, hey, I'm so happy for you that you found someone that you've connected with. Is there anything, any sort of feedback that you would give me? Is there any specific reason? Because it could just be that they don't like my perfume or they don't like the color of my hair. People have rapport with others and they have connections that we don't always understand. And so in that 20 minutes of being negative or 2 days of trolling their listing, I could have made, 30 phone calls to different people or checked in with somebody who, maybe has a referral for a, $2 million house in Venice Beach. That stuff happens. And so you just have to just quickly move away from it.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Mel, your hair is terrific.
Oh, thank you.
So I got a
Get more gray, get a little more gray.
Yeah, yours and mine. Have I told you guys the fable of the 2 monks?
No.
Okay.
I'd like to hear it.
So Steve, I'm going to really shorten it, but Steve, it's to answer, it's in response to what you said about losing the listing. You have the 2 monks that live way up on the hill, and they're the kind that can't talk, they can't drink, touch women, any of that stuff. Once a month, the 2 monks go down this long journey over a river, keep going to the store, and then they get all the rations for the monastery, come back over the river all the way up the hill. And so they go down, they make it to the river, and there's this damsel, a gal that cannot cross the river by herself. So the one monk picks her up, walks across the river, puts her on the other side. They continue to the store and back, across the river, all the way up the hill. And then the other monk turned to him and said, look, you broke the rules. I cannot believe you picked up that gal and took her across the river. And the other monk said, well, I put her down on the other side. You've been carrying her ever since. So the message is, don't let the negative stuff take up real estate in your mind, right? Extract from it what you can. See if there's anything you could have done better. We all have awesome hair, so it's something different than that. And then if you can do something better, do it, but then it's gone. It's not encompassing anything. That's why you don't hold grudges. That's why you don't hang on to that stuff, because it will eat you up more than anybody else.
Absolutely. And as an example for that, last year, that very thing happened to me. I had a seller who I was so confident I was going to get that listing, and she went with someone else. And after it closed, I sent her a congratulations card at her other property, and she is constantly in touch with me, so there is potential there down the road. You'd never know. And it's fine to just close the door and be done with it, but it's also fine to just still put out positive things.
Mm-hmm. We have a couple comments I want to say.
Hey, Steve, real quick, I want to play devil's advocate and be Eric Post. So some people are just a friggin' pain in the ass, so you probably should be thankful you didn't get their listing too.
Exactly.
So.
Exactly.
Right.
There's a reason.
Several comments, a lot of love towards the ninjas. Fellow ninja here, John Stagniti. Bear with me. I'm sorry. I'm terrible with names. And the funny thing is, my last name gets butchered and I hate it. So I apologize. Fellow ninja here, game changer. I love this thought that John also said. Research says we can't banish thoughts. We can only replace them with other thoughts. That is so true. Try to sit here and, not here. This would be a bad time to practice this. We'd look like a bunch of quiet idiots for a little bit. No, but at some point, just stop and say, I'm not going to think about anything right now. It's damn near impossible. But so that's where you have to, your mind is a muscle. You have to put thoughts in it. You can control the thoughts you put into it. And like you said, Mel, whatever you're focused on is what expands. It's what becomes oftentimes reality, or as close to reality as possible, by putting those positive thoughts in your mind and focusing. A good way I like to explain it is best case scenario. Any scenario, whatever you're thinking about, what is your best case scenario? Let's use your example, Mel. Okay, so when you go to a listing appointment, your best case scenarios is, well, when you first get the call, your best case scenario is you make the appointment. Then your next best case scenario is the appointment goes well. Then it's that you get the listing. If you lose the listing, your best case scenario is, hey, maybe they think I'm a good agent and it was close and they appreciate that what I had done, and it wasn't an easy decision for them. And you kind of brought that up, Mel, how you even sent a card after the fact, and your best case scenario was, hey, maybe you have a future client from that. So Richard Murray had a comment, but it kind of disappeared. I don't see it.
I read it. So to Richard, everybody knows Richard. He's a amazing attorney, and he's a great part of Masters, gives us lots of advice and knowledge, and he's really good at not answering the question, but asking a question to promote comments from other people. And he's an admitted news junkie, and he said he would watch the news and there's all this like negative stuff, and he's got to get better at not watching negative news. And it's funny because you can search and they have positive news channels, which gives you the same news that's only positive. And look, we're all not sticking our head in the sand. There's negative stuff out there, but if you're going to start your morning and you want to hear the news, maybe just listen to the positive news channel. I get emails once a day from Notes from the Universe, which is just like a positive little something that just shows up. I read it, delete it. And anyway, how important do you think it is that you keep your head focused and keep the negative out?
That's game changer. We are in a competitive industry. We are constantly being bombarded with oh, do this to get better, or do that, or you're not doing this good enough, or you have to have a better, whatever it is. So we're constantly having to, wear a bunch of different hats. We're constantly having to learn different things and be on our, toes at the drop of a hat, do this, do that, we're at the mercy of our clients, mindsets, right? And their mental situations. So I think that, if we are letting ourselves be too tied to the outcome or the commission check, you that really shows through. I think that you have to just be in the positive mindset. You have to separate yourself from the outcome. You have to really be there to be an advocate and really show them that you are in their corner and also guiding them to make the best decisions. But you can't do that if you're in a negative place. You can't be a good advocate for them. You can't be a good, partner to your co-op. You can't reach those goals if you're in a constant, negative state. You're just doing such a disservice to the industry in general, but to our clients who we're really in this for.
Mm-hmm.
And it's also really infectious. Like they do psychology studies where they'll have like a cafe and someone will be reading a book or doing something on their phone and they'll burst out laughing, like just laughing their ass off. And everyone around them will start laughing. They didn't read what the guy read on the book or on the phone. It's just someone's really laughing hard. Everyone else just starts laughing too. That also works when the person's a super downer. So our clients kind of play off of our attitudes as well. So
yeah, and I mean,
it's important.
Absolutely. And even like if you are having issues with that other agent, I mean, we know half the time the issues aren't the buyers and the sellers, right? It's the other agent on the other side. And that's unfortunate, but it's the reality of it. And so, we have to protect our clients from that too. We can't convey, the same negative emotion if we're getting that from them. We have to really be that filter and just take, what's actually there and put it out there, but nothing else. Leave all that other stuff aside.
I think that's a good little tip, honestly, because I think that's where negativity breeds negativity, right? And I'm not a realtor, but I've been a part of a lot of transactions. And if it starts here and it just keeps going through everybody in the transaction, before you know it, it's like everybody wants to kill each other. But if you can stop that and just kind of manage it, then it probably creates a much better experience.
Absolutely. And you never know what someone else is going through, right? If you can just be like, okay, maybe they're having a shitty day or their dog died or something like that. Like, I'm just going to take what's there that needs to be there and pass it on.
And there are industries or jobs where you can be negative all the time. I mean, you can work at the DMV, and if you're just a grumpy Gus or Debbie Downer, you could probably be a pretty good employee there. And people show up, you give them what they need, you do, et cetera, et cetera. And there's a million other jobs. Where you can't? Our business. I mean, if there's a business where you have to have this strong mindset and you have to play in the positive far more than in the negative, it's in an industry like ours where you're constantly facing rejection. Think about how often every day, every one of us realtors gets rejected. Regardless of who you are, how long you've been in the business, how loyal your clients are, how great you are, how much production you do, everybody is making a call where they're not calling you back, or you're losing a listing, or a buyer's going to an open house and buying with someone else. And you always have to regroup and put your game face on and be right back in front of someone else. And if you take that negativity with you, guess what's going to happen? You're going to end up in a death spiral, because that person's going to do the same thing, because they're like, that person's a little edgy. I don't know if I want to spend the next 60 days of my life closely tethered to them. And so you lose that one, and now you're even more agitated. I want to also mention one other thing. You guys are all, Tucker, I know you were watching The Last Dance, the Michael Jordan story. Oh, yeah. Awesome episode this last week. He actually said, and this is the captain of success. And by the way, basketball's very similar to us. I mean, a basketball player, the best of basketball players, which I would argue Michael Jordan is constantly missing shots. They're constantly losing games. So they have to bring themselves back and go, okay, what can I learn from that game? What do I take forward? And then put the loss and the failure out of their mind and focus on the opportunity for the next success. His exact words on the last episode were, "My dad taught me that every negative can be turned into a positive." What an awesome quote from the epitome of success. And he went through some crazy stuff, including that same person being murdered in a horrific fashion. And he had to take that mindset and go, as horrific as that is, what can I learn from my dad's death? What would he have wanted me to do? What can I teach my kids? And what success can I have moving forward that he would have been proud of? And do the best you can with making that negative into a success.
As somebody told me this once, and I don't remember who, but I've used it throughout my career, but more when I was doing mortgages, because that was a friction-filled career, as we all know. But
Yeah.
and this is too. But every time you get to a point, and this applies to obviously your clients as a realtor as well, but every time you get to a point of friction, for whatever reason, right? It's an opportunity to kind of deepen a relationship, right? You can kind of come out the other side better. Sort of like taking back to your Last Dance analogy. Remember, he punched Steve Kerr in the face, and then they ended up being buddies after that. So like it was like this extreme point of friction, and then they pop out the other side, and they're like buddies, right? And they hated each other before. So I don't know. Anytime you run into kind of a situation like that where you got a lot of friction, high emotion issues, you kind of embrace that, and you can turn it into a better relationship, as opposed to clients that you don't ever want to talk to again and they don't want to talk to you, right?
You could do that with transactions too.
Yeah.
I learned a long time ago that sometimes when a big problem happens on a transaction, it can be an opportunity to create an amazing experience and the highest level of rapport, whether it's with the agent or the client. As you compensate for that problem and you deal with it, even though it's bumpy, they can realize how it's transactions that go really smooth and close smoothly are very forgettable. When there's a massive problem, it becomes a memorable experience, and you have an opportunity to come out the hero on that.
And it also will build credibility too, right? Something that maybe you had suggested that your clients do, and they don't maybe follow that advice, and then it comes back around and it should have happened, and then they trust you more in that regard too.
I got a question for you, Mel. So you have a toddler. I have a toddler. What's your super ninja mind trick to get out of the negative when your kid's driving you crazy?
Yeah, so I just have to remember that they're a toddler, right? It's like I can't expect them to be, mentally as stable as an adult, is or should be. The other night, we're just sort of like cutting out naps, and so we've got, at the end of the day, it's just crazy, right? Total shit show. And so I sort of have compared him to, like, when he's really tired, to being a cross between a drunk freshman and a crackhead. And so, you just have to remember, like, they're out of their minds. You gotta just step away, go outside for 5 minutes, just step away and remember, like, you're the adult. They're just learning life, and it's a crazy world, and they are in such a weird place with the pandemic that they don't understand it, and there could be really long-term lasting effects for them, and just having compassion.
Good answer. I figure there's a lot of people out there with toddlers at home that are cooped up that could probably use that. So, including myself.
You can turn to your motivational friend, Rodney Strong.
Yeah. The glass of wine. The glass of wine. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. When you got to explain the joke, it's probably a bad joke.
Was it Christmas Vacation where they're like, "How you get through the holidays?" You guys, my good friend Jack Daniels, right?
That's right. All right.
Awesome. Hey, Mel, you're involved with PMAR, and you're politically involved. In fact, your signature even has a resource for us realtors to know who the elected officials that are going up for re-election or new election support our cause, support real estate, support housing. And this podcast has, over the years, we have talked about every crazy decision being made by the powers that be, whether it's demolition taxes or, CDCs. Is that what it is, Tucker?
SDCs.
SDCs.
Yeah, the
Thank you.
lovely
Thank you.
SDC charger.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, yeah. So now we actually are at a pivotal moment in, I believe, in this Multnomah County. It's like this week, right? Or is
19th.
it the 19th? Okay, very soon.
Yep.
Where there are people we can endorse and we can encourage votes for that actually see the world somewhat through our lens as to housing. Talk a little bit about that, and maybe share a resource where some of our listeners can go and benefit from that.
Yeah, absolutely. So actually in Portland right now, this is a super unique situation. We've never had this happen in the history of our city, where we've had 4 of the 5 city council seats being up for election. And so there is an opportunity to really, make some change there. And so the PMAR PAC trustees, it's our political action committee, we every election year, so the even years, we interview candidates that are running for local races. We interview for, city council, mayoral positions, county commissioners, and what we try to do is we really try to find the candidates who are as closely aligned with housing and our industry based on our governmental affairs policies. So we have bylaws, we have rules that we have to follow, and we have, our group is made up of realtor members, volunteers, who are from all 4 corners of the region, and we come from all different political backgrounds. So when we're spending our time to really find candidates who are pro housing and pro realtor, it's important for us to support them. So for example, and I have to, make a note here, I'm not the official spokesperson of the PMAR PAC trustees. I used to be the chair back in the day, and, I've been doing it for about 10 years now, but, there will be times where maybe it's a candidate that I wouldn't necessarily vote for personally, but, we put those personal politics aside. And so, right now, for example, we have somebody like Loretta Smith. So she was a Multnomah County Commissioner, and when we had this whole they call it the remap, when you had your ADU, what was happening is that the county would go out and they would reassess the market value of the entire property, and then they would give you new taxes based on all of that land versus just reassessing the land that the new ADU was built on.
Which killed people, by the way. I mean, absolutely killed them.
Which was awful. So, we thankfully were, having a good relationship with Loretta Smith. She was able to take that and run with it. And she was the one that fought for us and fought for our clients, for private property rights, and saying, to the county, assessor, this is not how it should be. And so we were able to affect change there. We have over 8,000 members. And so when we have a good working relationship with these candidates and these elected officials, we really have the opportunity to make change. Mm-hmm. So it's something that's super important, which we need, right? So there is a one-sheet resource that PMAR has put out that essentially shows who we're recommending that you vote for coming up. It's too late to mail your ballots, but you can still deliver them at any ballot box. They're super easy to find. So that resource would be it's pmar.org, but I'm sure you've got PMAR emails in your inbox, and there are a lot of different ways to find that. We can post it here too if that's preferred. But it is something that is really, really important, especially right now. We need to save our region. We have some good recommendations and some people who've really, been champions for us.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it's not okay just for our listeners to just complain about, hey, city of Portland, they're so crazy, they're doing this. I mean, this is the time where our our body, the PMAR, is telling us, hey, these are the ones who will do things that are housing friendly. So this is that pivotal moment. I noticed Sam Adams. I'm just going to bring up a specific name.
Oh, yeah, he's running. He's
been
back.
around. He's been around as the mayor, and there was all sorts of controversy. Now he's coming back. Is he on that list? Is he?
He's not on that list, actually.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah, so we, in interviewing the different candidates, we felt that, there's a different sort of team structure that would work better for our industry.
Yeah. You know who is on the list? I looked at the list, Tucker. The mayor of Portland is on the list. Right?
Oh, Joy. Yeah.
So, and I'm glad we're talking about that because, the first time around in getting him elected, we were promised some things that hadn't come to fruition. And so we've had very, very frank conversations with Ted Wheeler about that. But the fact of the matter is that he has had an impressive number of victories recently. And of course, this pandemic aside, had been making pretty great strides with getting things in place to really work on our housing crisis, really work on our homelessness issues. And, it's just not the time to switch leadership. If we have somebody who is willing to go into the ring and get beat up every day, I think that says really a lot about a person. And I really, we really feel like he's the best candidate for that position at this point in time.
Which I can respect that point of view. I just hope that he follows through on whatever it is you guys are hoping he does this time around. Because we need some change. By the way, little side note. Have you guys seen the documentary Wild Wild Country?
No.
I have heard
with
about
the Rajneeshi people.
Here, yes.
I have figured out
The
where all these
Rajneeshi.
weirdos came from and why Portland is so bizarre. It started in
The Rajneeshi.
1993, the Rajneeshis. in
Yeah.
Antelope. Yeah, go watch it. It's Wild Wild Country. You'll be like, oh my God, how come we never heard of this?
That was crazy. Yeah.
I've heard.
Anyway, sidebar, but yeah.
Yeah, there you go.
So
So there's, look at the voter's guide.
Yeah, and sometimes, to be fair too, Mel, it's the less of two evils, right? I mean, there are times where there's two people and neither's great, but which one's going to be the better candidate?
Right, and it is based on our governmental affairs policies. We can post those here as well, and they're very specific, a set of guidelines that we have to follow and kind of put our own personal politics aside.
Yeah. Is there anyone else noteworthy that you want to mention, good or bad, as far as the candidates? Why?
Yeah, I mean, I live in Portland, and so of course the city council is really, really important to me. We love Carmen Rubio, we love Loretta Smith, we love Mingus Maps. As far as getting into, we have a unique regional government here in Metro. We're still, Tom Anderson, Mary Nolan, Bob Stacy, for Clackamas County, Jim Bernard, Ken Humberston, and, we've got Multnomah County commissioners who've been wonderful, Jessica Vega Peterson, Lori Stegman. Washington County, we've got Nafisa Faye and Roy Rogers. So, these are folks who've been vetted, who are really, in our minds, after doing this for many, many years and many hours of interviews and all of that, this is who, we feel is going to be the best to really support our industry and our clients. It's not just about, yes, it is about our ability to conduct our businesses as realtors, but it's also, we are advocates for our clients and for, the American dream, right? Private property rights.
Very impressive. Just rattling off those names. My gosh, you are so involved there. I can't believe that. And are all three counties right now on the 19th? Is that?
So, I, being in Multnomah County, of course, I won't have the same ballot as somebody else in Washington County, but I'm assuming that it's for this is the primary election, right? So in any given election year, you have the primary, which is in the spring. And then if a candidate wins that race where they get like 50% plus one, they secure that position. And then there's not a follow-up general election in the fall. But in the fall, we'll have the general election. That's where we'll have, of course, everything with the national scheme.
Awesome.
You guys have a stance. I got to bring it up on the Metro sponsored bond measure for, it's basically another revenue tax slash, let's call it homeless helper money. Do you guys have an official stance on that?
We don't.
Okay.
You know, what we have seen, you know, so take this last cycle, for example, when we had the housing bond. You know, we did not feel like that was something that we could support because it was shouldered by the homeowners, right? You know, how do you keep housing affordable if you continually raise property taxes? So, you know, if property taxes aren't the funding mechanism, then, you know, maybe it's not a race or a measure that we actually will take a formal stance on.
Gotcha. Yeah, it's one that hopefully everybody reads up on, but I've been watching we'll call it the news, right? For good or for bad. And they said it was polling about 50-50 pre-pandemic. And now it sounds like they're not very confident in it, which I hope ends up being the case for my position, but we'll see. Oh, Joe, Steve, are you guys aware of that one?
Mm-mm.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, read up on it, Steve. We'll talk afterwards so I don't trash
Yeah,
it.
it's an interesting time, you know, but I think the most important thing is, you know, the power's in the ballot. You know, get out there. You can't gripe about it if you're not doing anything about it, and get involved. You know, if you as a realtor don't, you know, feel the same way that we do about certain things, you know, there are ways for you to get involved. It's not just this political action committee where you sort of have to work your way and you know, be voted into that position. You know, there's a realtor advocacy committee. We meet about once a month. That, you know, it's an open forum. All are welcome. And so, you know, we typically have, you know, a somewhat small group. And so, you know, we will get realtor members who will call and say, well, why did you endorse this person and not that person? And, you know, it's just, we, you know, are really doing the best as volunteers as we can. And so we'd sure love to have more support in that regard.
I'm just glad you're there, Mel. I'm seriously glad there. And by the way, I live in Multnomah County. I'm in Lake Oswego, but Multnomah County. I'm probably 3 houses that way is Clackamas County. So,
Yep.
So thank you. Thank you for all you do. Couple comments. Richard Mario had one that was good. You know, sometimes his business as an attorney is kind of like a first responder, right? Where everybody's running away from problems, he's going into the problems, and he kind of addresses that. And so he has to. What he says is he has to have that positive mindset, and he has to shake those people. And he kind of says basically give them their best case scenario. Focus on their best case scenario. The best case scenario sometimes is, dude, you screwed up, or homeowner, you screwed up. This is going to cost you money. Let's try to keep it less than this amount, right? Maybe that's through a settlement or through, you know, mediation, whatever the case. So awesome thought process, because there will be times where our best case scenario is not necessarily a win, but we're trying to mitigate a bad situation. He talks about foreclosures too. He said, you know, if foreclosures start again, sellers will be in trouble. This can be a negative for realtors. This was actually a question. How do you prepare for the positive side of that? Any thoughts on that from you guys?
I mean, we rode this real estate roller coaster before, so buckle up. And, you know, I don't think that, I mean, I was reading a lot of articles on forbearance and kind of how they're going to handle it for those that have chosen to take it or needed to take it. And it looks like they're going to, you know, maybe amortize out what's owed or stack them on the back of the loan, at least with Fannie Freddie. So I think there'll probably be more of that gets worked out along the way, which will mitigate, you know, potential foreclosure activity in bulk. Obviously, there's going to be loss of job and income, and you know there'll always be a percentage of foreclosures. But if they can work out the forbearance thing and amortize that over the life of the loan or something along those lines, then I don't think it's going to be too big of a worry in terms of percentage based on market. So.
Well, and you also have to realize the numbers compared to 2008 are vastly different, right? You have 1 in 5 homeowners right now have more than 50% equity. Mm-hmm. So it's a different time. Yes, you have, of course, lots and lots of layoffs, but as far as the numbers and how they compare to, you know, what the actual structures of the loans are, it's quite a bit different than it was in 2008.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I would also add, it would also mean a lot more short sales if there was some kind of event where homes were heading towards foreclosure, we'd have a lot more short sales. When I started in this business, short sales were 50% of what I did. And I did learn the positives of short sales. You guys want to hear a couple positives of short sales?
Sure.
You list at 6%. Most of the time the bank doesn't question it. Seller doesn't care. They're not paying it. So you get, so your commissions are a little bit better. And then as is, no repair negotiations. A lot of times you're not in our world today, we're usually meeting with a seller. We're talking about strategic improvements. We're talking about putting the pillows in the right place. That kind of goes out the window with short sales. So, there are some advantages, and those are the positives that you can focus on in that regards.
For sure.
Positive mindset.
There you go. Yeah.
Well, hey, Steve, I got to say, we've been going for about an hour here, so I think we're getting on to the limit of what we can hold our guests and ourselves. But I think you found us a good guest. Very well.
I told you.
I said, let's do it. And, you were right. So thanks for coming on, Mel. A wealth of knowledge. I appreciate the toddler tip. And, obviously you're well connected with all of the future leaders of Multnomah County and the other counties as well. But it's great to see somebody that's so involved. That's for sure.
Yeah. And so on top of it and so well spoken and presents well. Like we're thrilled to have you as, a person out there representing our industry. So thanks for all you do.
That.
Yeah.
It's been fun.
All right. Well, on that note, folks,
watch out, Eric Post. Watch out. You might lose your throne in Joe's eyes.
That's right. All right, guys. Well, I'm going to stop the live stream. Thanks for joining us. If you catch it on the recording, feel free to post a comment. I'm sure everybody will chime in as needed. But thanks again, Mel, and of course to my co-hosts. Thanks again for listening to our show, and make sure to tune in next week for another great episode of the Portland Real Estate Podcast.